All right, today we're going to unpack a term you've probably seen thrown around online. And for a lot of people, it's become a pretty serious red flag in relationships. We're talking about the red pill ideology.
I mean, you've seen it, right? It's all over the place. Reddit forums, YouTube comments, sometimes even popping up in political arguments. But what does it actually mean when someone says they've taken the red pill?
Yeah, it actually started with a choice in a movie, a really famous one. But wow, has it morphed into something else entirely? It's now the blueprint for this really complex, really controversial worldview. So let's get into it.
Okay, so first up, what is the red pill? Let's trace it back, from its science fiction roots to the online subculture it's become today.
So it all goes back to the 1999 movie, The Matrix. You know the scene, right? Take the red pill and you wake up to the harsh, uncomfortable truth of reality. Well, online communities, especially in what's called the manosphere, totally co-opted this idea. For them, taking the red pill means waking up to their version of reality, which is the belief that our society, and feminism in particular, is specifically designed to hold men back.
All right, let's unpack the core beliefs. What is this truth that the ideology is built on?
Okay, so the core tenets are pretty intense. First, there's this central idea that feminism is actively harmful to men, that it's trying to strip them of their masculinity. Then there's this belief that women are biologically wired to be manipulative or to always be on the lookout for a higher status guy. They call it hypergamy. And because of all this, relationships aren't seen as a partnership. Nope, they're a power struggle, a game that you have to win.
And a huge piece of this whole worldview is how they categorize men. It all boils down to two main archetypes. You've got the alpha male. He's the dominant, successful, confident guy that women supposedly find irresistible. And then you have the beta male. He's seen as the opposite, submissive, less successful, and kind of undesirable. And get this, being a beta often just means you're a guy who is kind to a woman to try and win her over, which they see as a totally flawed strategy.
And this mindset can get really extreme. This quote here comes from a 2023 study, and it's from an ex-partner of someone deep in this ideology. She said, for them, it's very all or nothing. All women are bad. There's no in between. They're all horrible. They're all cheaters. I mean, that just perfectly captures that black and white thinking, right? There's just no room for nuance.
But here's where a major contradiction pops up. The research found that these same men who were convinced that all women are cheaters would often be on dating apps trying to seduce other women themselves. And their justification? They believe that, as men, they were just, naturally bound to philandering behaviors.
So, okay, that's the belief system. But how does this stuff actually show up in the real world? Let's talk about the first major warning sign, a completely warped worldview. This is how the ideology really shapes perception.
And some of the behaviors that came out in the research are pretty shocking. For instance, some partners reported being told they were intellectually inferior. Some guys would even ask them to take IQ tests to prove it. Just wow.
There's also this whole specific vocabulary that comes with it. You might hear the term hitting the wall. This is used to describe when a woman supposedly becomes unattractive, and they usually pin that age at around 25. And of course, this worldview often champions really traditional gender roles. One woman in the study recalled her partner telling her that getting a college degree was a waste of time. The belief behind that? That a woman's place is in the home, period. Okay, so beyond just the worldview, there's another really big warning sign: the use of specific manipulation tactics. It's almost like there's a playbook for control.
One of the most common tactics mentioned was something called love bombing. And let's be clear, this isn't just a guy being super romantic. It's a calculated strategy. Step 1, overwhelm a new partner with just an insane amount of attention and affection. Step 2, use that to push the relationship forward really fast. And the final step, use that intense, fast connection to gain control and even isolate them from their friends.
And that's not the only play in the book. There's also coaxing and guilt-tripping to get what they want. There's creating what they call dread, which is basically keeping a partner in constant fear that you'll leave them. They might also actively sabotage their partner's independence, like discouraging a career. And of course, there's just flat-out dismissing their concerns, gaslighting them or ignoring their feelings entirely.
So this all leads to a really big question, right? What's the psychology behind all of this? What kind of personality traits are we talking about here? Well, the research points to a very specific and pretty dark connection.
So, what are the psychological traits that are consistently linked to this ideology?
The answer is something psychologists call the dark triad.
It's a combination of 3 personality traits. First, you have narcissism. That's the inflated sense of self-importance and constant need for admiration. Then there's Machiavellianism, which is just a willingness to be cunning and manipulative to get what you want. And finally, psychopathy, which is characterized by a real lack of empathy and a callous disregard for other people's feelings.
And look, these aren't just some abstract psychological terms. The studies show a direct link between these traits and the very behaviors we've been talking about, like a willingness to use coercive tactics to get sex and a total obsession with the outward appearance of success.
And this quote from the researchers really nails the core issue here. They say, the unique and novel aspects of TRP are not necessarily its advocacy for sexual manipulation, but rather that they are being repackaged under the guise of scientifically approached male empowerment. So what they're saying is, the real danger isn't just the manipulative ideas themselves, it's that they're wrapped up and sold as self-help, as a form of male empowerment.
And that really leaves us with one final crucial question to think about. If an ideology promises self-improvement and empowerment, but it's built on a foundation of manipulation and a literal lack of empathy, you've got to ask yourself, who does it truly empower? And maybe more importantly, at whose expense?